I never imagined a simple question would lead to life-changing friendship. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The air was thick with a tension I could feel in my bones. One moment, I was cruising through life, the next, I was standing on the edge of the world, teetering over a chasm of uncertainty. My heart raced as I looked into my best friend Sarah's eyes. "What if you just asked him?" she whispered, her voice quivering with the weight of what she suggested. Just a question, that's all it took. But the fear gripped me. What if the answer was too painful to bear? I remember the sound of traffic and laughter in the park where we sat, the distant chirps of birds mocking my dread. I clutched my phone, its skin cold against my clammy palm. Our shared past rushed back like a flood, our childhood dreams, whispered secrets, late-night talks about life and love. Could a single question unravel all of that? My breath hitched as I thought of Jake. The boy with the stunning smile and eyes that sparkled like a hidden treasure. What if he didn't feel the same? A tightness settled in my chest. Just last week, we were joking about life after high school, throwing around what-ifs that felt harmless. But now, faced with my feelings, everything felt magnified. Could I risk our friendship for a chance at something more? My mind spun with possibilities, each darker than the last. I imagined losing him, the silence that would consume my days, the ache that would never fade. As I turned to Sarah, she was watching me, her expression a mixture of hope and concern. "You'll never know unless you try." I met her gaze, her brown eyes wide and earnest. She understood the stakes, the gamble I was about to take. It felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, the ground crumbling beneath me, with no safety net below. My body trembled, but I felt this strange pull, an urge urging me to leap. But what if I fell? What if I got hurt? My thoughts spiraled, each idea more terrifying than the last. That's when it happened. A commotion broke my reverie. People gasped nearby, a sudden crash resounding against the laughter and music. My heart dropped. I looked toward the chaos, breathless. Everything blurred as my focus shifted. A street performer, a juggler, spinning flames had lost control. Fire sizzled in the air, and screams echoed. My pulse thundered in my ears. I stumbled back, instinct screaming for me to flee. The world, just moments ago vibrant, morphed into a scene of chaos. Fear washed over me like icy water. I didn't know what to think. How could something so lively turn into distress so quickly? In that heartbeat, amidst the urgency and terror, my decision crystallized. Perhaps life was too short to hold back. I turned back to Sarah, ready to ask that question, but then the adrenaline surged. Out of nowhere, a boy darted into the fray, reaching for the flames. My heart lurched. What was he thinking? My voice caught in my throat, and all I could do was watch, fear gripping me tighter than before. Who was this mystery boy? And what if he got hurt? Suddenly, my own worries felt small. In that moment, one question burned in my mind. What were we willing to risk for a chance at something real? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash the like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The moment hung between us, thick and electric, as the street performer's flames swirled and danced dangerously close to the boy's outstretched hands. I felt the world shrink down to that singular moment, and nothing else mattered. The crowd was caught in a mix of awe and horror, and it felt surreal, like watching a scene unfold in slow motion. Is he insane? Sarah gasped, clutching my arm. I could only shake my head, my chest tightening with a breath that felt far too large for my lungs. The boy, young, maybe my age, with tousled dark hair and fierce determination etched into his face, snatched the flaming baton that had spun out of the juggler's control. For a heartbeat, he held it against the chaos, like a lone hero standing against a towering inferno. Then, the flames flickered and hissed as he extinguished them with a swift, deft motion. The crowd erupted into cheers, their fright transforming into an exhilarating rush of relief. Relief that I was not feeling. I could only watch as he emerged from the fire with a triumphant grin, the adrenaline coursing through him like a wildfire. But amidst the excitement, I felt my fear morph into something sharper, a sense of envy. What would it be like to have that kind of courage, to leap without hesitation into the unknown? In the midst of the chaos, I had forgotten about Jake entirely. My heart pounded painfully, pulling me back to the very question that haunted me. Would I ever summon the bravery to face my own fears, to confront the feelings buried deep inside me? As if reading my thoughts, Sarah squeezed my hand. "Look at him," she whispered, pointing to the boy, whose laughter now filled the air as he basked in the applause. "He just did something amazing. You can't let fear hold you back." I turned back toward her, searching her eyes, desperate for reassurance. What if I lose everything? The weight of what was unsaid haunted me. I had never been this vulnerable, this exposed. Or what if you gain everything? Sarah countered gently. You won't know until you try. A new flicker of hope ignited inside of me, but it was dim and fragile, threatened by the shadows of doubt. My gaze returned to the boy, who was now surrounded by friends, their admiration glistening in their eyes. Suddenly, he turned, tossing his head back with laughter, and I saw our own laughter reflected in him. Maybe there was magic in that abandon, a chance at something more profound than our fears. I caught a glimpse of Jake in the crowd, his warm smile breaking through the chaos, his eyes filled with kindness. He had been watching the scene unfold, concern etched across his features. My heart leapt, infused with both fear and an inexplicable warmth. What if he could be the one to catch me if I fell? A wild idea rushed through my mind. Sarah, what if I asked him right now? The thought was free-spirited, a rebellion against my fear. But then it struck me, the weight of what that meant. My pulse quickened, a mix of thrill and dread swirling with each breath. Right now? At the park? Sarah's voice was a blend of excitement and caution. The way her eyes widened both thrilled and terrified me. I could already hear the what-ifs rushing back like relentless waves. Yes, I declared, my voice stronger than I felt. Yes, what if? I began moving, drawn to Jake like a moth to flame, but then the chaos shifted around us. The crowd had begun to thin as people dispersed, either to leave or seek out the next adventure. My heart sank momentarily, the opportunity to ask slipping through my fingers like quicksilver. Then, amidst the joyous din, I caught sight of the boy, the one who had leapt into the flames, and he was now navigating through the crowd, his eyes scanning, searching. There was something in the way he carried himself that intrigued me, an aura of spontaneity that felt contagious. Jake's eyes met mine just then, as the joyful rush of the crowd faded around us, and everything else fell away. My heart kicked in my chest. This was my moment, a heartbeat suspended in time, where everything felt possible, but just as I moved forward, hoping to claim my moment, the boy collided with me unexpectedly. Hey, that was insane! He exclaimed, his voice full of fervor. Did you see that? I thought I was going to get scorched. He laughed, and it was a bright, infectious sound. He didn't know it, but he had become an unexpected ally, infused with courage. In that moment, I realized I was teetering on a precipice of my own, a chance to step into the fire, to embrace whatever came next, or to retreat into the shadows of doubt. How could I ask Jake anything now? Would sharing my heart with him feel as reckless as the boy's leap? Time hung between us, suspense bubbling in the air. And you are? I asked, a spark of determination igniting within me. He grinned, that same fire blazing in his eyes, and when he spoke, it was as if he held the key to unlocking something I had buried too deep. Noah. And, you? Little did I know, my journey toward asking that life-changing question had only just begun. The flames of uncertainty danced around me, but I felt that perhaps, just perhaps, I wasn't alone on this edge. Would I take a leap of faith, or would I find myself retreating once more? My heart raced with both exhilaration and fear, hanging in the balance, waiting for a nudge. The moment dragged on, bound by the unspoken promise of possibility that hovered in the air. I could feel Noah's anticipation, an energy that crackled with the potential for more than just this fleeting encounter. It was as if the universe had conspired to gather us here, two strangers with an instant connection carved by the chaos that surrounded us. I am Elise, I finally managed, my voice trembling slightly as the enormity of the moment pressed down on me. What you did back there was brave. I wish I could. I admire that. Thanks. Noah chuckled, a soft yet bright laugh that made the world around us fade. Sometimes you just have to go for it, you know? Life is too short to hesitate. He shifted slightly, pushing back his hair with an action that gave me a glimpse of the carefree spirit beneath. Being in his presence was a balm for the anxiety that churned inside me, but I found my mind whirling not towards him, but towards Jake, who still stood a few steps away, watching our interaction unfold with an unreadable expression on his face. A part of me was desperate to pull Jake into this moment, to weave him into the heart of this unexpected connection. You should join us next time I perform, Noah continued, his eyes alight with enthusiasm. I'm always looking for a partner to take this plunge with. It's exhilarating. Don't you think? Every fiber of my being urged me to say yes, to leap into this new adventure. But then that vicious internal voice resurfaced, whispering doubts into my ear like a cold draft creeping through an open window. What did I truly want? Would I trade the delicate balance of what I had with Jake, the comfort and the safe familiarity, for the unknown? I began, but my words crashed into the swell of uncertainty. From the corner of my eye, I noticed Jake stepping closer, drawn by the magnetism of our exchange, yet stalling in his approach as if tethered by invisible strings. Suddenly, Noah paused, his expression shifting from excitement to curiosity. Hey, is that your friend? He followed my gaze. He looks like he wants to join the party. Yeah, I admitted, my heart pounding like a drum. That's Jake. He's important to me. Noah offered me a knowing smile. The kind of important that makes you want to leap, right? I felt a blush creep across my cheeks, unsure whether to laugh or to retreat. Before I could respond, Jake cleared his throat, stepping closer and breaking the spell that had momentarily wrapped us all in warmth. Hey, Elise. His voice was steady, familiar, but there was a flicker of concern in his eyes that made my throat tighten. I saw you were talking to Simeon. This is Noah, I introduced hastily, a tinge of nerves threading through my voice. He's a street performer. Nice to meet you, Jake said, though I could tell he was measuring the extent of Noah's impact competing with his own familiar gravity. You really impressed everyone back there. That was some crazy stuff. Noah's grin widened, and a quick banter ignited between them like fire igniting paper. They instantly found common ground, a shared admiration for daring stunts and spontaneous adventures. I stood to the side, feeling out of place, like a tethered balloon that a sudden gust might tear from the ground, but just as I found myself yearning to reclaim the space, to voice what had become a heavy weight in my chest, an unexpected interruption came roaring through the serene moment. A siren blared from a distance, sharp and slicing through the air like a dagger. I turned to see the commotion as emergency vehicles sped past the park, their lights flashing red and blue. The ambience shifted instantly, the joy melting away like snow in the sun. People began to murmur, faces wearing expressions of concern and curiosity, mine included. What happened? I asked, anxiety gripping me tighter. Noah's brow furrowed, and Jake stepped closer for assurance. Not sure, but it seems serious, he said softly, his incredulity matching mine. In those moments, the laughter and joy we had just shared melted into an uncertainty that loomed over us, darkening my thoughts like storm clouds gathering for a tempest. My heart quickened not just from the distant chaos but from a sudden realization that hit me harder than expected. The fragility of our connection, of this newfound friendship, was glaringly obvious. Amid the shifting dynamics, an electric urge to voice my thoughts surged through me again. Would I ever ask Jake how I truly felt? Each fleeting moment slipped away like sand through my fingers, and every choice felt heavier than the last. I took a breath, glancing from Noah to Jake. Each of them was a path, an avenue of friendship that held potential and risk. Can we talk? I finally blurted out, my voice cracking under the weight of urgency. But before anyone could respond, an old woman near the park bench suddenly collapsed, drawing gasps and frantic movement from the crowd. I watched as paramedics rushed in to assist her, turning our attention to the scene unfolding anew. Just like that, the opportunity slipped again, out of reach, as fear and instinct shot through me. The tension electrified the air, a collage of fear, empathy, and uncertainty mingling together, tightening the grip on my heart like a fist. Would I find the courage to breach what had become a chasm between my heart and the people around me in the wake of this chaos? Or would I allow the weight of the moment crush me into the shadows yet again? I hastily glanced towards Jake, my heart laid bare in the thick veil of confusion. I was undeniably at a crossroads, where every choice rippled outward, uncertain and wild, much like the flames that had first drawn us all together. Would I ever dare to take that leap into the unknown, or would fear clench the curtain, hiding what could be a life truly changed? The sirens faded into the distance, but the air felt heavy, thick with unresolved tension. I stood frozen as the chaos around us ebbed like a tide withdrawing from the shore. Jake's eyes flitted between the scene of the older woman receiving help and my face, searching for answers I couldn't provide. My heart raced, knowing that my chance to express what was simmering within me was slipping away again. For a moment, everything felt surreal, the vibrant hues of the park dulled by the shock of the unexpected. I felt like an observer trapped inside a glass box, watching Noah's easy charm and Jake's familiar warmth, both within reach yet separated by an intangible wall I couldn't breach. "Should we help?" Jake suggested, a hint of urgency coloring his words. It was the kind of call to arms I had always admired in him, thoughtful, instinctive, caring. "Yes," I whispered, my voice trembling as I broke free from the paralysis that had held me captive. We hurried over to the gathering crowd, a knot of anxiety twisting tighter in my stomach as I approached the paramedics, their quick movements carrying an air of professionalism that felt both comforting and alarming. "Is she going to be okay?" I asked, desperation threading through my voice as the crowd murmured in unison, a chorus of fear woven into the fabric of their curious glances. One of the paramedics, a sturdy woman with kind eyes, looked up from her efforts with a reassuring nod. "She's stable," she said. "We just need to monitor her closely. It's a fainting spell, probably due to dehydration." "Well, take care of her." Surprisingly, relief washed over me, a small reprieve in the midst of uncertainty. I turned to Noah, who was standing beside Jake. His face was a mask of concern, his carefree energy subdued by reality's harshness. "Life is unpredictable, isn't it?" he said softly, his voice barely a whisper against the hum of the crowd. "Yeah," I sighed, folding my arms tightly against my chest as if to hold myself together. "It really is." The brief moment of clarity made me keenly aware of the decisions I had yet to face. Each heartbeat seemed to echo with the weight of potential, making me wonder if I was truly prepared for what lay beyond our encounter. As the sound of sirens faded into the background, I turned back to Jake. He stood close, his brows furrowed in thought as he absorbed the moment. "Hey, let's get some water for her," he suggested, suddenly energized by a newfound purpose. "She'll need it when she wakes up." I nodded, grateful for his practicality, but my heart pulled me toward the deeper conversation waiting just beneath the surface between us. As we made our way to the nearby vendor, my mind swirled with thoughts. Despite the fear and uncertainty looming over me, I couldn't deny the bloom of something new forming between Noah, Jake, and me, a tapestry woven with threads of compassion and care. While Jake engaged the vendor in conversation, I watched him, wishing I could unfurl my thoughts and hopes to him. Would he understand? If I spoke up now, would it change everything we had built together? "Can we talk?" The words tumbled from my lips again, this time sharper, more defined. It wasn't lost on me how absurd it felt to ask this in the middle of helping a stranger, yet the impulsive need to confront my feelings outweighed the fear that gripped me. Jake glanced at me, surprise flickering across his face. Yeah. Sure. In a minute, okay," I breathed, clasping my hands together in a bid to push back the whirlwind of emotions threatening to overtake me. After getting the water, we returned to the group, where the woman was coming around, blinking at the bright lights of the paramedics and the concerned faces surrounding her. I caught Noah's gaze, and he gave me an encouraging nod that infused some courage into my heart. Perhaps this newfound friendship could weave us all together rather than split us apart. As we stepped aside after making sure she was all right, I locked eyes with Jake again, swallowing hard as the moment to confess approached. "Listen, there's something I need to tell you." But before I could finish, a commotion erupted in the crowd. A child had started to cry at the back, followed by fragments of conversation laced with panic and disarray. "Where's my mom?" A small voice rang out, cutting through the murmurs like a blade. Jake immediately straightened, the familiar kindness igniting in his eyes as he turned to me. "Stay here. I'll go check it out," he said, already moving toward the disturbance with purpose. The knot of anxiety tightened again in my chest, but it wasn't just fear for how far he would go, it was the sense of something profound drawing Jake away from me, separating us just as our connection began to deepen. I felt like I was standing on the edge of an expanse, ready to leap but immobile with uncertainty. Wait. My voice broke through the chaos, reaching out with an urgency I couldn't contain. Jake, please, but the din swallowed my call, and he disappeared into the throng of people. Noah stood beside me, his expression shifting from concern to a knowing empathy. He'll figure it out, he said quietly, a sliver of hope threading through his words. He's got a good heart, maybe he did, but that didn't ease the urgency of my own heartache gnawing at my insides. I grappled with how to act, fought against the instinct to hide in silence. Just as he turned to comfort me, a figure appeared in the crowd, a woman whose face was woven with anxiety and fear. In that moment, a chilling realization struck me: the woman had a striking resemblance to Jake. As she rushed forward, anxiously searching the crowd, my breath caught in my throat. Could this be his mother? The truth hung in the air, a revelation that could change everything, and a billion questions churned within me, but all I could do was stand there, clinging to a single thread of hope twisted in the fabric of uncertainty. The bustling park had transformed into a tumultuous sea of anxious voices, each one layered with tension, uncertainty, and fear. I stood frozen, the image of the woman desperately searching echoed in my mind. Moments stretched into what felt like hours. I desperately wanted to reach out, to pull Jake back from the chaos he had willingly dove into, but the weight of the unknown was far heavier than my instincts to act. He's in there, Noah said quietly, his voice a grounding anchor against the swirl of commotion. Hell help her, but what if I started, the words slamming into the brick wall of uncertainty that loomed before me. My heart raced, thumping against my ribcage as I locked eyes with the woman. She looked like she had stepped onto the scene of a nightmare, bewildered and lost in a world she had once known so well. Just then, she spotted me, and I felt the cruel twist of fate hit me square in the chest. Where is he? Her voice trembled, a desperate plea to the universe, and I knew in that moment that Jake had to be more than just a friend to her. I am not sure, I managed, my heart clawing at my throat. He's helping someone. I think my voice faltered as I took a step closer. Are you Jake's mother? Her face fell, the flicker of hope extinguishing like a candle caught in the wind. Yes, she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. I'm terrified. It's been so long the connection between us felt surreal and tethered to something far deeper than the present chaos. He'll be back soon. He's very capable, I reassured her, my voice softening, even as uncertainty tangled my own thoughts. As I held her gaze, I couldn't ignore the sudden pang of empathy for her, a woman's loss and need, reflecting a myriad of my own fears and unanswered questions about belonging. Seconds later, Jake re-emerged, and relief pulsed through my veins. But as the moment unfolded, his expression painted a stark contrast to his usual calmness. The lines around his eyes had deepened, something beyond worry had taken hold of him, an undercurrent of unresolved history surfacing in the wake of the moment. Mom. He called out, cutting through the cacophony with a voice that held both strength and vulnerability. He rushed toward her, all caution tossed aside as he enveloped her in his embrace, grounding both of them with the power of connection. But instead of joining them, I clung to Noah's side, the emotional tether I had hoped to solidify with Jake fraying as he lost himself in a moment that had always belonged to just him. Unease wrapped around me, a mix of longing and the weight of the unexpected revelation. My heart ached with an unspoken question, an uncertainty that threatened to spill over with each passing second. We should give them some space, Noah murmured, a gentle nudge toward action that made sense, yet still felt harrowing. Is everything okay? I heard myself ask, unable to suppress the worry that crept into my chest. Noah glanced at me, his eyes steady yet filled with an understanding I admired. That's up to them to decide. As I watched Jake's mother whisper something into his ear, his expression shifted into one of confusion and concern, dark clouds shadowing the warmth I had always associated with him. He was steady and dependable, yet the cracks were beginning to reveal a complexity that I hadn't been prepared for. My heart called out for him, but I felt paralyzed by the fear that the answers I longed for would dismantle everything I held dear. In the whirlwind of seeking hope, I couldn't help but think that this moment could be the tipping point, the fracture that might splinter our fragile trio apart. The park gradually quieted, the fading sounds of sirens and anxious chatter drifted to the background. But in the silence, a disquiet settled around us as I watched Jake pull away from his mom, his brow furrowed and lips pressed together. He turned, catching my eye with a look I could only describe as lonely, the kind of loneliness that clawed at his heart even in a crowd. And then, the strangest thing happened. Jake's eyes flickered to Noah, a flicker of uncertainty brewing beneath their connection. A memory of earlier resurfaced, the comfort he found within the laughter shared between us. Those ties bound us together, held in place by shared pasts and awareness of one another's struggles. Yet as Jake's gaze darted between us, I saw something darker in the shadows of his grief, an unvoiced question lurking, threatening to rear its head if provoked. In that split moment, my heart shattered and swelled simultaneously, and I realized that our friendship was on the precipice of something larger, more complex than I could have ever imagined. But then Jake's mother spoke again, her voice quivering like a leaf caught in the wind. "I came here looking," she said, her voice barely more than a whisper. "I didn't know you were here," was hoping to reconcile. The weight of her words hit like a thunderclap, a fracture rippling through the tenuous connections we had formed. I turned to Noah, his expression mirroring the confusion swirling within me. Where did this leave us? What would it mean for our fragile circle, and how close were we to unraveling altogether? As the tumultuous air of emotions ensnared us all, a new realization dawned on me, suddenly clear in both its severity and depth. We were caught between friendship and familial ties, hope and despair. In this moment unfolding before us, there lingered the unmistakable truth that we were teetering on the edge of an emotional cliff. And all it would take was a single question, a simple unraveling of our hearts, to send us tumbling into the unknown. The silence that followed Jake's mother's admission pressed down on us like a heavy cloak, the air thick with unspoken words that scrambled around our hearts. I could see the turmoil shifting beneath Jake's stoic facade, the tension in his shoulders coiling tightly as if ready to spring. "Reconcile?" he echoed, his voice laced with disbelief. It was a word that seemed to carry the weight of an entire life to me, a word that illuminated the shadowy corners of their shared past, now surfacing in an unexpected confrontation, right in front of me. "I've been searching for a long time, Jake." His mother's voice trembled. "I kept hoping you'd forgive me for everything. For leaving, for all the pain. But I never stopped wanting to be close to you." My heart ached for Jake as his face contorted with emotions too complex to unravel. Confusion mingled with longing, pushing against the walls of hurt he had been so skillfully guarding. It was a revelation that shone a harsh light on the tangled history threading through our Levisa history. I realized I knew shockingly little about Noah. Cast a worried glance at me, silently asking if I was all right. I wasn't sure. I felt the familiar sensation of loss expanding within me, but I also sensed the almost magnetic pull of hope, like a distant star breaking through the fog. As Jake took a deep breath, uncertainty evident, I found myself moving involuntarily closer to him. My instincts begged me to offer him some comfort, to wrap him in a cocoon of reassurance that everything would be okay, but the gravity of the moment rooted me in place. I could only watch, my heart throbbing in sync with his every hesitation. "Why now?" he finally asked, the tremor in his voice betraying the strength he tried to muster. "I've changed," she replied, her eyes shimmering with tears. "I realized the damage I caused, and I didn't want that to be the end of our story. I've spent years trying to find my way back to you. But you left." Jake shot back, the anguish bubbling to the surface, raw and unfiltered. "You can't just show up and expect everything to be fine. How am I supposed to trust you?" A wave of indignation washed over me, a blaze of protective instinct igniting at the corner of my heart. I wanted to intervene, to remind him that healing takes time, that sometimes, just sometimes, the hardest roads can lead to the sweetest destinations. "Jake," I began, but quickly swallowed my words when he turned away, his shoulders trembling with unshed anger. His mother took a step forward, desperation etching lines of regret across her face. "I know it's not fair. I don't expect you to forgive me immediately, but I am here, and I want to try. I want you to know me. I want to be part of your life again, if you'll let me." Moments passed as they stood there, two souls grappling with a past neither could escape. I recognized the emotional chasm that was opening up between longing and resentment, hope and fear, love and hurt. "Part of your life?" Jake's voice cracked, a painful echo of disbelief. "Do you even understand what that means? I've lived my entire life without you. I'm not sure I can just change everything, believe you, trust you." His vulnerability hung in the air like an exposed nerve, and in that raw moment, I felt a flicker within me, a small ember urging me to bridge the distance, to challenge the fear spreading between us. As if sensing the shift, his mother stepped closer to him again. "I don't want to take your memories away, or replace anyone. I want to be here for you, to see you become the person you're meant to be. I want to be there as a friend, like I should have been all along. The forgiveness she sought was painted with a clarity that began to cut through the haze of animosity surrounding them. Around us, the park remained eerily still, the sounds of distant laughter and the occasional breeze whispering through the trees fading into the background, as the weight of this family's unraveling tightened around the three of us. But before I had a chance to say anything more, before I could forge the words into a lifeline for Jakey, a sudden commotion erupted. At the park entrance. The unmistakable sound of animated chatter drew my attention away from their confrontation, my heart racing as I turned. Amidst the crowd, a figure emerged, a tall young woman with a striking likeness to Jake, and a fierce determination in her eyes. "And what the hell are you doing here?" she shouted, her voice slicing through the tension like a blade. I felt my breath hitch in my throat, a new shockwave rolling over me. This couldn't be. Was she another piece of the puzzle? Jake's mother's eyes widened, her mouth forming an O of disbelief. "You're Sarah?" "Damn right." And all I could do was watch as the fabric of their family history strained against the weight of a new revelation that threatened to unravel everything. The unspoken answer to my earlier question lingered like a ghost, urging us toward an impending collision, each moment growing heavier as the stakes once again soared, plunging me further into the depths of uncertainty. In that critical moment, I realized that hope and heartbreak walk a fine line, and I was about to be pulled into an emotional maelstrom I could never have anticipated. The tension in the air flickered like a live wire, crackling with emotions that had long been left unaddressed. Sarah's arrival felt like a tidal wave crashing over the fragile moment we had all been stewing in, an eruption of unexpected complications and buried truths surfacing all at once. Jake stood frozen, his eyes darting between Sarah and his mother, disbelief etched across his features. "You know her?" he barely managed to ask, the words spilling out with a mix of confusion and trepidation. "I know enough," Sarah shot back, her tone defiant yet tinged with something softer that hinted at deeper connections. "She left you and disappeared, didn't she? But you've been looking for her. Do you honestly think you can just show up out of the blue and pretend everything's okay?" "That's what I've been trying to tell him." Jake's voice rose, the frustration boiling over like a pot left to simmer too long. "You act like it's so easy. You think trauma can just be neat and tidy with a bow on top." His mother looked like she had been struck, her regret now tangible, seeping into the ground beneath her feet. "I never wanted to disappear, Jake. I thought what? That would just be waiting for you? That would live lives on pause until you decided to come back?" Sarah's words crackled like fire, each one igniting the tension further. In the midst of their confrontation, I felt lost, my heart aching for Jake, watching the strong edges of his walls begin to fracture. It was as if he were standing on the brink of a precipice, wavering between the fractures of familial bonds and the remnants of shattered trust. "Sarah, please," Jake finally said, his voice quieter now, an undercurrent of desperation lacing through. He turned to face her fully, the weight of unanswered questions hanging heavy in the gap between them. "Why are you here, as if you don't know?" She took a step closer, her intensity unwavering. "You're my brother. We're family, even if no one wants to admit it. I didn't know who you were for a long time, but I spent so much time searching. The minute I heard Mom was trying to reach out, I had to know if you were okay." Her words hung between us, fragile yet filled with a flicker of hope. I felt a small spark ignite deep within me, reminding me that sometimes the hardest truths lead to the most significant connections. "Family," her voice crescendoed into something soft yet fierce. "Isn't that what we've all been missing? You have every right to be angry, Jake, but it's okay to feel something else too. We can create what we need from here, together." For a moment, the tension in the air shifted subtly. Jake's shoulders were still tense, but I could see the flicker of curiosity in his sharp gaze. Even in his pain, the notion of familial love began to break through like a sliver of light illuminating a darkened path. "What if I don't want a relationship?" Jake's words came out in a whisper, a challenge wrapped within them, testing whether the emotional waters could withstand his truth. "Then I'll respect that," Sarah answered, her tone softening, an understanding born from experience. "But I'll be here when you are ready. No rush. I just needed you to know what?" Jake interrupted, a mix of anger and hurt bubbling at the surface. "That I can't ever be whole again? That'll never feel safe with any of you." As his bitterness spilled forth, Sarah took a step back, her expression a painful blend of empathy and determination. That's not true. You may feel broken, but that doesn't mean you are. If you want to hold on to that hurt, then that's fine. But I want you to know that you're not alone. You never were. A gust of wind swept through the park, rustling the leaves and tangling my thoughts as I stood watching the siblings navigate their emotions, each carrying their own burden. A whisper of courage built within me, urging me to step forward. I know this is all overwhelming, I finally said, my voice cutting through the soft murmurs of the park around us. But Jake, you don't have to figure everything out right now. Family isn't just bound by blood, sometimes it's about choice and understanding each other. He looked at me, eyes swirling with an unfathomable mix of gratitude and disbelief. I felt my heart race, desperately wanting him to know that healing was possible, even if the path seemed riddled with bumps and pitfalls. Just when I thought the air would still, a sinking realization washed over me as my gaze caught a glimpse of Jake's mother. Her facade had shattered, and I could see her raw pain in vivid detail, both desperate for her son's forgiveness and terrified of its unlikeliness. Jake, I never wanted to give you just excuses, she said, her voice barely a whisper, yet unwavering. I want to show you who I am now. I want to earn your trust no matter how long it takes. Jake's expression softened, vulnerability casting shadows over the walls he had built so staunchly. You think it's easy, coming back? No, I don't think it's easy. But I'm willing to fight for you. You'll fight for us. And then came a silence, a bastion of unspoken words weaving together fragile threads of possibility amidst the heavy atmosphere. But just as Jake seemed to be on the brink of something shifted in both Sarah and Jake's eyes, a dawning realization, the architect of their secrets appearing to unfurl yet more layers of uncharted territory. What the hell have you gotten us into, Mom? Sarah's voice wavered, and I could feel the pulse of desperation encroaching once more. What do you mean? Jake looked at Sarah, confusion mingling with something flaring in the pit of his stomach. Before Sarah could respond, the amplification of her resolve threatened to spill over. There is more to this story, and it involves both of us. The truth is, I have lived with my own demons and unanswered questions that are tied to you, Jake. This is bigger than either of us. As the revelation hung in the air laden with uncertainty, I took a step back, an impromptu spectator of the emotional unraveling that soon threatened to drown all of us in its tidal wave of truth. In that harrowing moment, the lines between past and present blurred, and I knew nothing would ever be the same again, not for any of us. The air was thick with anticipation, a blanket of unease pulled tightly around us as Sarah's words echoed in my mind. My heart raced, caught in the turbulence between her confession and the raw wound that Jake carried. The world around us fell silent, the hum of evening life fading into the background as I tried to collect my thoughts. Shaken by the weight of impending revelations, Jake's gaze darted between Sarah and their mother, confusion and a flicker of fear igniting in his eyes. What do you mean, bigger than either of us? He demanded, his voice a mixture of anger and desperation. What could possibly connect us in a way that makes everything else seem meaningless? As Sarah opened her mouth to respond, I could sense the unsaid things thrumming like a distant storm. It was a moment so fraught with tension it was as if the universe held its breath. A distant dog barked, a child laughed somewhere in the park, but the sounds felt miles away, echoing a life we were all desperate to grasp yet terrified of pursuing. Jake, you have to understand, Sarah said, her voice steadier than I felt it should be. I spent years trying to piece together the fragments of what happened, why she left. There were secrets, truths buried deep that we all need to face. Secrets? Jake echoed, his incredulity spilling over into disbelief and hurt. What kind of secrets could justify abandoning your own son? A flurry of emotions danced across Sarah's face, determination, regret, fear, and an unwavering resolve intertwined as she stared at her brother, the family bonds woven at the edge of toxicity and longing. It's about the way she left, Sarah hesitated, her breath hitching in her throat. It's about the choices that were made, and why, Sarah? Their mother interrupted, stepping forward, a hand clutching at her throat like the words might choke her. We don't have to dig deeper. Not yet. Jake said fiercely, stepping closer, relinquishing his distance as if trying to absorb her emotional turmoil. We have to. If we're going to heal, we can't keep dancing around what happened. Once again, silence enveloped us, a fragile stillness humming with the tension of revelations waiting to unfurl. I felt my heartache for Jake, knowing the shards of his past were bearing down upon him like an old weight, one that threatened to capsize him any moment should he lay it all bare. Sarah, if we open this door, if we expose whatever it is that you've been keeping from me, can we really handle it? He asked, the quiver in his voice a mere echo of the storm brewing within. In that moment, we were suspended between the desire for truth and the suffocating fear of what it might reveal. A flicker of understanding sparked between the siblings, a recognition of the need for honesty guided by the ever-elusive hope for healing. With a deep breath, Sarah clasped her hands together, her knuckles white. There was a reason Mom left, something she couldn't voice before, something that ties into both of us. Not just her regrets but also yours, Jake. The past isn't something we can outrun any longer. The gravity of her statement punched the air out of my lungs as anguish washed over Jake's features. So what? You're saying we're destined to be a family forever shackled by our mistakes? No, that's not what I'm saying, Sarah said urgently, stepping closer, grappling for some semblance of connection. What I mean is that maybe there's a way to understand the mistakes instead of letting them define us. I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe that. I want us to move forward together. If together means digging into old wounds, I don't know if I can. Jake's voice trembled, his vulnerability laid bare amidst his simmering rage. I've spent years in the dark, Jake. But so have you, Sarah pressed. I believe we can make sense of it together. If that means reopening old wounds, then so be it. Their mother, caught between her children's clarion call for understanding and her guilt, looked like a ghost adrift in shadows. No, please, you don't understand. I thought I was protecting you both. Her words rang hollow as I watched Jake take a step back, retreating into his own mental labyrinth. Protecting us? Or just yourself? He said, his tone edged with bitterness. There's no shield for the invisible scars we bear. In that moment, the evening began to take on an air of finality, the golden sunset streaking the sky, directly mirroring the bittersweet blend of emotions surrounding us. I sensed the fragile equilibrium hanging by a thread, one that could snap at any instant. Just then, a piercing shriek erupted from the distancia, scream unlike any other. A child's cry, raw and filled with terror, shattered the precipice we teetered on. All heads turned towards the sound, a visceral jolt of dread overtaking the air. In a heartbeat, the siblings' confrontation was swallowed by a newfound urgency. I felt the cold fear creeping back, and my heart raced as I looked towards Jake. Did you hear that? I whispered, dread pooling in my stomach as I felt his eyes on me, a shared moment of unspoken panic flaring between us. It's not our concern, he stuttered, torn between the instinct to run and the need to stay and address the turmoil before us, but even as he spoke, I could see that in his heart, he knew this was a moment far more significant than any confrontation. This was the reality of the world outside, and whatever was about to unfold could change everything. Jake, I pressed, feeling a rush of adrenaline. What if this is a sign? What if we can't allow our insecurities to keep us from facing the truth? We might just have a chance to become who we were meant to be. But before he could respond, the shriek cut through the air again, closer this time, filled with a desperate call for help. Our fears melted together into something palpable, a shred of hope kindling within the bonds we had begun to forge. Let's go, Jake whispered, a flicker of determination igniting in his gaze, as we turned to face the unknown repetition of the past, unsure of what truths awaited us in the eerie twilight. The cry pierced through the dusk like a knife, pulling at the threads of my resolve and binding us together in an unforeseen urgency. As if caught in the tide of a strong current, Jake led the way, his instinct to protect propelling him forward. I followed closely, Sarah at my side, a medley of confusion and trepidation thrumming through the air. Where is it coming from? Sarah's voice trembled, a stark contrast to the determination etched on Jake's face. He scanned the park, eyes darting as if seeking a beacon in the gathering twilight. Over there, he shouted, his voice cutting through the cacophony of panic. We pushed through the trees, branches snaking overhead as we skidded to a stop at the edge of a small clearing. In the middle of the field, a child no more than 5 was doubled over in distress, tangled in what appeared to be discarded playground equipment. There was a playground just beyond the clearing, its swing swaying gently in the evening breeze, the rusted metal glinting as the last light of day began to fade. Let me help, I shouted, rushing toward the frightened figure. The panic in the child's eyes reflected a terror I recognized all too well, helplessness, the kind that resides deep in the gut. I dropped to my knees, stretching out a hand. It's okay, in here. Just stay calm. Help. I can't get out. The child wailed, the shrieks now raw and reverberating in my chest. Jake, keep an eye out for any adults nearby, Sarah urged, glancing around futilely at the empty park, the echo of laughter now replaced by this haunting sea air. No, wait. Jake called after her, the urgency gripping his voice. Stay with, but Sarah was already weaving through the foliage, searching for answers in the stark isolation of the woods. As I carefully maneuvered closer to the child, I realized how tight the metal had latched onto their small body. Each movement seemed to cause more distress. What's your name? I asked gently, breathing through my own rising panic. Ellie. The child cried, tears spilling down her cheeks. I can't get free. I could feel the weight of that plea settling heavily on my heart. Ellie, we'll help you. Just hold on, okay? With frantic determination, I tugged on the metal bars, feeling the resistance push back. A moment later, I felt the heat of an anxious presence beside mine. Was Jake, his hands taking over where mine faltered. I've got you, he murmured to Ellie, his gaze focused, the fear replaced with fierce conviction. In that moment, he transformed, shedding the frayed edges of his own pain to be a source of strength for someone else. Ellie, on the count of 3, we're going to pull, all right? 1, 2, 3. Jake shouted, and together we yanked the metal away from Ellie's limbs. The release was sudden, her small form tumbling forward into my waiting arms, trembling but free. She gasped, clutching onto me as if I were her lifeline, a fragile little soul in a world that had momentarily outrun her. I lifted her up, her small heart beating rapidly against mine as I held her close. Thank you. She stammered, still gulping back sobs, her little fingers gripping my shirt as if to root herself to this new moment of safety, but the lingering dread of unanswered questions shadowed me like a specter. My gaze darted toward Jake, who was looking around wildly, a profound concern clouding his features. Where is Sarah? He asked, biting down the fear that was creeping back into his voice. Maybe she went to find the parents. I said, shaking my head to clear the uncertainty grasping at me. Yet as Ellie clung tighter, I felt a cold shiver of apprehension sweep over me. Jake's expression shifted, a flicker of understanding crossing through his eyes, a symbol of our shared commitment woven tighter by the moment of action we had just experienced. We can't leave her alone, not here, he spoke resolutely, and for a fragment of time, the chaos of our own lives faded into the backdrop of this fleeting scene of innocence lost. In that heartbeat, our roles had changed. We were not just grappling with the heavy burdens of our pasts, but were now holding space for this child's fear, an unexpected fulcrum upon which our own struggles pivoted. The soft thud of footsteps echoed through the trees, and a figure came rushing into view. It was Sarah, her face drenched in worry. What happened? She gasped, clearly shaken, as she locked eyes with Ellie. Just breathe, sweetheart. Everything is okay now, I assured Ellie in a hushed tone, casting a glance toward Sarah and then back to Jake. We found her caught in some equipment, Jake explained. She was terrified. Oh, Ellie. Sarah sank to her knees, enveloping the child in a gentle hug, breathing in relief as tears sparkled in her eyes. You're safe now, I promise. The moment seemed to unravel time itself, and I felt it again, that undeniable hope that even in the chaos, kindness could weave a thread of connection. As Sarah cradled Ellie, Jake and I shared a silent understanding, a recognition that the anchors of our own pasts were perhaps untangling in the face of this shared endeavor. But before we could linger on that thought, a shadow fell over us. A figure stepped through the trees, sweat glistening on their forehead. A man who looked distressed and worn. Ellie. His voice cracked, coated with a mix of panic and relief. I've been looking everywhere for you, Dad. Ellie squealed, scrambling out of Sarah's embrace and launching into the man's arms. Jake's expression changed as he realized the implications of this reunion. A crack of vulnerability appeared, exposing the fissures he had been desperately trying to keep hidden. The moment of hope began to drift as he stepped backward, overwhelmed by the intertwining of newfound relationships and the reality of his own estrangement. Are you okay? The father asked, kneeling to cup Ellie's face in his hands, searching her for signs of injury, unaware of the swirling storms that now raged in the hearts surrounding them. Yeah, I was scared, Ellie murmured, her small voice still trembling, yet radiant with trust. But Jake remained detached, the warmth of the moment cooling almost instantly. He exchanged glances with me, a torrent of unexpressed emotions locked behind his eyes, the fragmented conflict of wanting to be whole, yet fearing the consequences of reaching for it. Jake, I started gently, but he shook his head, stepping away from where truth was vulnerable, instead lost in the myriad of emotions that remained unaddressed. I need a moment, he said quietly, retreating into the enveloping trees, leaving uncertainty in his wake. Sarah's eyes widened, concern etching into her brow as Ellie's laughter danced off the edges of their reunion, a flicker of mirth amid the haunting echoes of past sorrows. And we stood there, a web of uncertainty stitched around us, a hint of hope dulled by the dawning realization that confronting our fears was one thing, but walking forward alone was a different battle altogether. I turned back to see the man embracing Ellie, warmth shining where shadows had lingered only moments before. But as the scene unfolded before me, I sensed that this episode was merely the beginning of unraveling a web far more intricate than any of us had prepared to face. A chilling figure of longing and unresolved conflict loomed just beyond our grasp, waiting to unveil itself when the time was ripe, and in the stillness of that gathering twilight, I realized that while hope sparkled like distant stars, the shadows of our pasts were about to converge in ways we might never have anticipated. The chill of dusk settled over us like a damp blanket as I glanced at the retreating figure of Jake, swallowed by the trees. My heart took a sharp turn, uncertainty flooding my thoughts like an overflowing river. The laughter surrounding us felt painfully juxtaposed against the weight of emotions that tugged at my very core. I turned to Sarah and Ellie, trying to breathe through the anxiety rising like a tide within me. "Are you two all right?" I managed to ask, though the tremor in my voice betrayed my own unresolved turmoil. Ellie grinned, her innocence shining through. "I was scared, but you helped me." Her eyes sparkled with admiration and gratitude, drawing the warmth of the moment back around us like a comforting cocoon. Sarah smiled softly, brushing a hand through Ellie's hair, but her gaze flickered to the trees where Jake had disappeared. "It's just a lot for him to process." Her words echoed my own thoughts, and I felt a surge of empathy for Jake. "I can't believe this all happened at once," I murmured, half to myself, half to them. There was a heaviness which hung between us, the unshared burden of our respective histories luridly blending together. We had faced something monumental as a group, Simeon's child in distress, but Jake had fled, confronting not only his own fears but the tangled threads of his family's past. Ellie's father knelt before her, relief washing over him as she wrapped her small arms around his neck. "You gave everyone a scare, kiddo," he said, the tension in his voice slowly slipping away as he took a few deep breaths. "Let's get you some ice cream and check out that playground, alright?" Ellie's face lit up, but Sarah's eyes remained shadowed by deeper questions. "You did something really brave," she called out to the father, recognition sparkling in her voice. "You've got a great daughter." His grateful smile turned warm, but something flickered between them, a momentary acknowledgement of each shared commitment to be guardians of the fragile joy of youth. I felt an insistent pull from the shadows of the trees where Jake lurked, my thoughts running wild, tangled in a desperate urge to follow him. "They'll catch up with you guys," I said, the words spilling out as though they were fueled by a deeper intuition. "I think he needs someone right now, but he might just need some space," Sarah replied gently, yet there was something in her gaze that mirrored my own turmoil. "He'll be okay," I insisted, my heart racing with an unfamiliar determination. I took a step back, glancing once more at the father and daughter, an invisible thread of connection weaving between us that held a tender promise of hope. As I turned toward the trees, I was propelled forward by an instinct stronger than fear, the obligation to reach out to Jake and unravel the tension that had ensnared him among those trees. The moment I crossed into the shadows, the bright colors of the park faded into muted shades of uncertainty. I peered into the thinning branches, listening for any sign of his presence. The farther I went, the harder it became to disentangle my thoughts from the tangles of our emotional journey. "Jake?" I called out quietly, my voice barely rising above the whispers of the wind through the leaves. I moved farther in, my heart pounding with each step, uncertainty fighting to pull me back. "Are you okay?" I heard a rustle ahead, and my pulse quickened. "Give me a minute," he replied, his voice low and heavy. "Please, I just want to talk," I said urgently, my heart aching for him. I pushed my way through the last of the brambles, finally breaking free into a small clearing. There, seated on a fallen log, was Jake, his shoulders hunched as he stared into the distance. His profile was an image of heartbreak, and it shattered me in ways I was unprepared for. "I am sorry," I breathed, moving closer, drawn toward him like gravity. "I didn't know if you needed space or not," but my words felt clumsy, a kind of admission of the raw emotions rippling beneath the surface of both our hearts. "It doesn't matter," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. I don't know how to face either of them." She laughed. "And now there are so many pieces I don't even know how to put back together." My heart hurt for him in that moment, an ache that resonated deeply within me. You don't have to figure it all out at once, you know, I said softly, inching closer to him. This is overwhelming. You're allowed to feel lost. I paused, trying to find the right words, the right way to break through the shadow that surrounded him. But you're also not trapped. You have the power to redefine everything on your terms, Jake. His eyes met mine, a storm of emotions swimming within them. For a brief moment, I saw the flickers of vulnerability, the deep-seated fears, but also something else, a glimmer of recognition that we both walked a challenging path, intertwined in a quest for connection. What if I don't want them in my life? He questioned, raw vulnerability lacing his tone. What if I don't want the reminders of what I lost, what you lost as part of you? I replied gently, refusing to back away from his pain. But you also have a choice to navigate your future. Trust takes time, Jake. Allow yourself the chance to explore whatever that means to you. He looked away, struggling with his thoughts. Maybe I'm too broken to piece things together. Silence formed a fragile cocoon around us, heavy with dread and unspoken longing. The shadows of our pasts flickered with each heartbeat, yet the moment felt tangibly a shared weight, one that wove warmth like a beacon of hope. What if broken things can still be beautiful? I suggested cautiously, my heart racing, emboldened by my own belief that growth can sprout from shadows. In fact, they often are. He took a deep breath and pushed away the self-loathing that clung to him. Finally breaking his gaze free from the distance, he fixed his eyes on me. You shouldn't have to be here for me. If I didn't want to be here, I wouldn't be, I insisted, feeling the unyielding pull of the moment solidify between us. But I do want to be here because you are worth it. His eyes softened, teetering on the edge of something unspoken, something fragile that hung, waiting to be released. We stayed quiet for a moment longer, enveloped in the stillness that only deep, shared understanding can provide. A warm breeze brushed over the edges of the clearing, rustling through the trees, and the distance between us began to shrink. I felt a gentle shift, a warmth blossoming in our shared pauses. Can I tell you something? Jake asked, breaking the silence. I'm scared. I'm scared of letting them back in, of hurting again. But I'm also scared of missing the chance to know what could be different. I nodded, realizing the weight that he bore was greater than I had understood. It's okay to be scared. It's even okay to not know how to move forward. But you don't have to do it alone. You have people who care. How about we figure it out together? He let out a shaky breath, the tension leaving him inch by inch. Together, he repeated softly, uncertainty still laced in his voice, but it was accompanied by the tiniest hint of hope. I could feel it, the delicate quiver of a bond igniting and weaving us two imperfect souls seeking solace within the wreckage of life. Before the silence could stretch again, I spoke. You know you can embrace your fears and let them go. Walking away doesn't mean you forget. It means you choose how to carry those experiences with you. Jake turned his head slightly, a flicker of thought passing over his features, mulling over my words. So, what happens if I decide to let them in again? What if it all goes wrong? Then you'll have a story to tell, I offered, feeling conviction sweep through me like flames finding air. A story that leads you toward your truth. But maybe this time you'll face it head-on instead of letting it control you. His brow furrowed as he contemplated my words, the shadows lifting just enough to allow a hint of light to shine through. What if I need a little more time? Then let's take the time together, I said softly, a warmth flooding the space between us. What we're facing isn't just about them, this is about you, about us. There's a beauty in the journey we're on, Jake. He took another breath, the first hint of relief beginning to wash over the pain that had wrapped around him like chains. His lips twitched into the faintest smile, the hope glimmering was not just within him, but in the air that filled the clearing. As we lingered in that moment, a shared smile breaking open the heaviness of the world outside, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. Every wound in his past didn't have to define him, just as my own journey didn't have to define mine. The realization washed over us like an unexpected dawn. I am still unsure, he admitted, his honesty a thing of beauty, but I want to try it. Let's be okay with unsure, I agreed, mirroring the hope beginning to blossom within. Together. With that simple word, a new chapter unfolded before us, untangling the shadows of burdens we carried alone. Just beyond the treetops, the first twinkling stars began to emerge, casting their quiet glow upon our fragile gathering, illuminating that perhaps, amidst the chaos, there exists the potential for redemption and heartfelt connection, and as joy seeped through the embrace of uncertainty, I realized that sometimes, the most profound friendships are birthed not from shared laughter or untroubled moments, but through the willingness to stand together postured between the ruins of the past and the promise of tomorrow. The irony heart raced toward uncharted territory as I whispered a vow to cherish this journey, knowing that sometimes the greatest risks lead to the most breathtaking discoveries. In that fleeting, yet infinitely powerful moment, I found clarity. In finding each other, we may have just started redefining what it meant to heal. We would face the tides, together.